So today we will be discussing economic importance of bacteria and fungi. Before we go into the importance, there are a few things you have to know about bacteria. So generally when we talk about bacteria, you already have a slight idea about prokaryotic cells. Bacteria belongs to prokaryotic cells. So generally when we talk about prokaryotic cells, what it means is the genetic material is freely mixing in the cytoplasm. It is not contained within a proper nucleus. That means a well-defined nucleus is absent. In addition to this, you will also not get any cell organelles. So similarly, a bacteria also has a genetic material freely mixing in the cytoplasm. It is surrounded by a protective cell wall, and in some rare cases you might find chloroplasts. So bacteria which contain chloroplasts are generally green in color and they help in performing photosynthesis. In addition to the chloroplast in the genetic material, you will also find small rounded bodies which are used either for storage of water or storage of food. Then the bacteria also has an elongated whip-like structure. This whip-like structure is called flagella. Flagella helps in the movement of bacteria. In some cases, the bacteria is covered by a spore. Spore generally is an adaptation for the bacteria to survive the unfavorable conditions. That means when the unfavorable conditions arrive, like lack of water, air and light, spores protect the bacteria. And when the favorable conditions return, the spores, they just get destroyed and the bacteria starts to live normally. Bacteria, they can either be heterotrophic or autotrophic. Autotrophic in the case of bacteria which have chloroplasts, they are preparing food by photosynthesis. Generally bacteria are heterotrophic or saprophytic. That means they feed on dead decaying organisms. Bacteria reproduce by undergoing simple divisions of the cell. So before a cell divides, what happens is the genetic material, it duplicates. That means you get two copies of the genetic material. Once the two copies of the genetic material are produced, the bacterial cell, it divides into two. Bacteria are present everywhere. It might be present in the air, water, soil, food and even in our cells. Bacteria is present in our intestines, in our mouth. Some bacteria are also beneficial to us. Like for example, the bacteria present within us are responsible for production of vitamin B. So generally when we talk about bacteria, bacteria has been named according to their shapes. So a bacteria which is spherical is named coccus. A bacteria which is rod shaped is named bacillus. A bacteria which is comma shaped is named vibrio, and a bacteria which is spiral or twisted is named spirilla. So a coccus or spherical bacteria means a rounded bacteria. It might exist singly or in pairs. If it exists in pairs, it is called diplococcus, or if it exists in long chains, it is called staphylococcus. Bacillus or rod shaped. Bacteria shaped like a rod. Vibrio or comma shaped. Bacteria shaped like a comma. If we magnify this bacteria, this is what you're going to see. The genetic material and the general outline of the bacteria resembling a comma shaped. Spiral or twisted bacteria. That means bacteria which are spiral or twisted. Now moving on to the importance of bacteria. The first one is production of antibiotics. Generally, most of the small microorganisms like bacteria, fungi and viruses, they are harmful to us. That means they are capable of causing diseases. So, generally antibiotics are substances which help us in fighting against these microorganisms. And the unique thing about antibiotics is they themselves are produced from bacteria, fungus. So, the most famous antibiotic is penicillin. It was discovered by Alexander Fleming, and penicillin is produced from fungus. But since we are concentrating only on bacteria, we will concentrate on streptomycin. Streptomycin is an antibiotic produced from bacteria. So again, antibiotics are substances which help us in fighting off against disease causing microorganisms, which may be either viruses, bacteria or fungi. The next one is vaccine. Next importance of bacteria is vaccine. Vaccine are substances which are injected into the body of an organism to provide immunity against diseases. Immunity means the ability to fight off against disease causing organisms. So vaccines generally may contain dead or weakened organisms. So because of the dead or weakened organisms, what happens is the body produces antibodies. These antibodies remain in circulation so that when the same organism which is live and stronger attacks the body, these antibodies, they will fight off against them. So generally vaccines, what do? Is they sensitize the body to fight off against future disease causing organisms. So the famous bacterial vaccines are TAB and BCG. TAB contains weakened organisms, BCG contains dead organisms. BCG vaccine is used to fight off against tuberculosis, and the full form of BCG is Bacillus calmette-guerin. TAB vaccine is used to fight off against typhoid, and the full form of TAB is typhoid type A and B vaccine. TAB. So vaccines are substances which help the body in providing immunity against future infections. Next is serum production. If you collect blood in a test tube and leave it overnight, the blood cells will collect at the bottom, and at the top you will get a clear straw colored fluid. This clear straw colored fluid is called serum. Serum contains antibodies and antitoxins. Antibodies and antitoxins can be used to fight off against disease causing germs. So generally for the production of serum, what we do is we inject organisms which cause diseases in horses or cattle. So due to the injection of the disease causing organisms in the horses and cattle, serum can be collected from these horses and cattle, and serum, I already told you, contains antibodies and antitoxin, which can again be used to fight against diseases. Similarly, we can also produce useful hormones by using bacteria. For the production of insulin, a bacteria called Escherichia coli is used. You all know insulin is useful in helping us to treat against diabetes. So how insulin is produced from E. coli? It is very simple. A gene is selected which is responsible for production of insulin. That gene is inserted into the genetic makeup of E. coli, and since bacteria, they grow and divide rapidly containing the I gene, that means insulin, we can get huge amounts of insulin. Another important use of bacteria is in the industries. Like bacteria is used in leather and tea industries. Like in tea industries, bacteria are used so that the tea gets fermented and you get different flavors of tea. Similarly, in the leather industry, bacteria is used to tan the leather. That means for the removal of the impurities from the leather. And the most important use of bacteria is in fixing nitrogen. We all know that plants require nitrogen for their growth, and nitrogen is not used by the plants directly. Plants generally use nitrogen in the form of nitrates. So generally what happens is when plants and animals die, they produce ammonia or ammonium compounds. These ammonium compounds are converted into nitrites, and nitrites are in turn converted into nitrates, which are found in the soil and utilized by the plants. So the conversion of ammonia or ammonium compounds into nitrates is done by saprophytic bacteria. That means bacteria feeding on dead decaying organisms. So generally the ammonia or ammonium compounds are present in dead organisms, which can either be plants or animals. Once these are being converted into nitrates by saprophytic bacteria, nitrates are converted into nitrates by nitrobacter. So nitrobacter are the nitrogen fixing bacteria which converts free nitrogen into nitrates, which are ultimately used by the plants. So all these are the positive uses of bacteria. And generally bacteria does not only have positive uses. You all know that most of the diseases are caused by bacteria. So the harmful effects of bacteria is production of diseases. And the most famous diseases caused by bacteria are tuberculosis, typhoid and cholera. In addition to this, bacteria is also used as bioweapon. Bioweapon means biological organisms are used as weapons, and the most famous example is anthrax. Anthrax attack in the USA killed a huge amount of people. And another thing which you have already heard about is food poisoning, and the food poisoning caused by bacteria is called botulism. Generally happens in food which are kept in tins or cans. So these are the uses of bacteria. Some can be positive and some can be negative. So in the next class we will be doing economic importance of fungi.